everybody. Welcome to episode 23 of Zesty Thoughts. I'm recording this episode on the 6th. So the energy is a little bit weird today. Probably weird for a lot of you. So I want to start the episode with a 1 minute, just like minute of silence, like little meditation for us to get centered. And just, I'm going to get into some heavy stuff today. So let's just take a minute to just get centered, and get ready to have this conversation. Okay. All right, everybody. I hope that you are centered. And I am reflecting on coming into this conversation with peace and love as best I can. Sorry if you could hear the hum of my air purifier in the background. To me, that is just like, I don't even hear it anymore because I'm so used to it. I sleep with it on and everything. So if you could hear that, lol, my bad. Obviously, if you are in America, or if you're not in America, anywhere on the planet, I'm sure you already know that Trump has now been elected our next president. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are excited about that. Clearly, because he has a massive following, a massive base of people that support him. So I guess congrats. I feel so apprehensive saying that. It's a weird, this is a hard conversation for me to get at because I tend to get very intense when it comes to politics. And I'm trying to, as I get older, come at the conversation with a little bit more like maturity and clarity. And like I said, peace and love. I think that's just like my main priority going into political conversations at this point. And there's so many things to say, but I do have like a few bullet points of just like main ideas that I want to discuss, that I've kind of been reflecting on throughout this election cycle, and especially today, with the results. So let's just dive right into it. The first thought that it's not really the first thought, but it's kind of this underlying thought that I have surrounding like the divide. I guess for starters, I'm super disappointed in the campaign that Kamala Harris ran. I mean, she really thought, and I don't know who else, the Democratic Party, like they really thought that they could like swing moderates our way by leaning right. I just think that's such a naive thing to attempt. And progressive issues are so popular. They're so massively popular, like across any party. They cross party lines, progressive issues. A lot of conservatives are very progressive on a lot of things. and maybe they don't even realize. And it's, to me, it's just very disappointing that there was no embrace of that like progressive side. And I feel like the Democratic Party made a really, really big mistake in not embracing that. I spent some time with family a few weeks ago, and I actually had some whiskey with a family member of mine, who is a Trump supporter, and we talked for like hours. And she's, I don't know, there's been some divide in our family because of it. So it's been kind of like intense. There was even like drama leading up to us all spending time together. Like, oh, because there's been divide in the family, we're like, we want to be able to see each other and hang out and spend time together and there not be drama. So like it was like, let's just not bring it up, but I knew that, I knew that she's an open-minded person to the extent that like she would have a conversation with me about it. And it just came out naturally because we're both very passionate people. And I don't know, I walked away from that conversation realizing like, God, we have a lot in common about like our goals for America and like how we want America to improve for everybody. We're both from like middle class kind of backgrounds within our family. Like nobody's really wealthy. Not many of us are like dirt poor. We're middle class. And so we've had the privilege to at least see and analyze how things have changed, and we felt it more than middle class ever used to. So we realized, there are a lot of things that like economically we agree upon. I think the only thing that was a pretty clear divide was like the rhetoric and like the semantics surrounding the conversation and the disconnect regarding like who the messenger is for what needs to get done. And I think that that's like one thing that I've had a hard time understanding about people that support Trump is that like, I feel like across the board, a lot of conservatives, at least in the past, maybe this is changing now, but like they're pretty big on like small government from what I can understand about people that are conservative. It's along the lines of like, do what you want to do as long as it doesn't like affect me. Like, do what you want. Like, it's not my business. I don't care what you do. And also like, don't disrespect me. I feel like those are kind of three big things that like, at least from my understanding, most like conservatives stand by those kind of three things. And I guess in my brain, I don't really see the connection as to how Trump is aligned with those values. So to me, I don't really understand how like Trump is even like a good candidate for people that hold those values like to their heart. Because to me, Trump is like very disrespectful in a whole host of ways. The way he speaks about women, the way he speaks about immigrants, the way he speaks about people of color, like he's just disrespectful. The way he's explaining it, the way he speaks down to them, the language he uses, it's like violent, dangerous language. And it's disrespectful. It's just rude. Like, and I feel like you're living under a rock if you can't at least look at the way he speaks about things and go, yeah, well, he should have said it a different way, like, which most conservatives like admit. So I don't know, if you can't admit that, then we probably can't have this conversation two ways. But like, to me, it doesn't add up that the party of respect and freedom and all of that, like, so you're okay if he dishes it out to people that aren't you, but if he dished it out to you, you'd have a problem. Like that's where I think the main disconnect to me is because he's very disrespectful. If you don't stand by that, then like, why do you stand by it when he does it to other people? There's just a large ear of like complacency surrounding that aspect of like Trump as a person. And how you are as a person affects how you run a country. So that's a lot of that's another topic that's another comment I've heard from Trump supporters. Is like, oh, I don't like who he is as a person, but his policies, It's like, you don't think who he is as a person impacts like what policies he chooses to create or what policies he chooses to like not support? That there's no way that isn't connected. So I don't understand that personally. And I wish that I could have like productive conversations with people that are Trump supporters regarding that specifically. And it's like, if you really don't like him as a person, like, why don't you say that? Like, why don't you're a Trump supporter. If you rock a MAGA hat, then like, why don't you call him out on it? Why don't you tweet at him? Like, it's like, because Kamala and the Biden administration, like it was very clear that publicly online in media that like liberals did not support a lot of the stuff that they did. And we don't like shy away from complaining and speaking out when they do things wrong. Especially like with Kamala on the campaign trail. Like people were very vocal about like her lack of support for hearing out Palestinian voices. It was just problematic. It was very like one-sided. And I mean, God, even Trump was hearing out Arab voters and Palestinians. It's just very disappointing. So we were not afraid to call that out and complain about that. We're not afraid to admit when our candidate does wrong and call them out on it and make it like an issue and like express that vocally to them, to their face. You see people in town halls and stuff and in these rallies and in these Q&As with Kamala, you see people that are already committed to voting for her bringing up these issues to her. So at least she has the chance to consider them, and think on them. But you just don't really see these things brought up to Trump. You don't really see or hear people, his own supporters, question those things and say, hey, you know what? That's like I'm a Latino and I like already want to vote for you. But like, I don't really like the way you talk about like immigrants because like I was an immigrant or like my parents were immigrants, like XYZ. Like, can you like, first of all, backtrack that and explain in like a more respectful way? Because like we don't take to that disrespect lightly, like that's not cool. We don't mess with that. If you continue to do that, like you're going to lose our vote. You know what I mean? I don't know. So to me, I think I take issue with like a lot of Trump supporters like not being willing to like call him out for when he does stuff wrong. And I mean, that's like barely scratching the surface of like what is problematic about a person like him being in power. Disrespect is just one thing, the idea, to bring it back to like conservatives being for like small government, passing a law or like allowing laws to be passed even at a state level that control women's bodies and a woman's right to choose and control her own destiny when it comes to family planning or lack thereof, and that is not small government. Like, stay out of our business. Has nothing to do with the government. Like, why do they care? And even my cousin could agree on that. She's like, yeah, I don't really think the government should. I'm like, okay. So, so I don't get it then, and across the board in the country, abortion bans are not popular. A majority of Americans support women having access to them. So it's crazy. I don't know. That to me is another Another thing that I don't really get, because that is very much big government up in your business. So I'm like, maybe they don't care about that anymore. I'm just trying to analyze this change too, like in real time. It's very, it's weird to see that. I don't know. Thirdly, just the idea of, you do your thing as long as it doesn't hurt me or anyone else. Like it's not my business. Like why do people care about trans people and what they're doing? Bro, to me, I don't get it. The stories about kids getting like sex changes at school, this like gross exaggeration of that doesn't happen. Like, unless you yourself know a trans person or you've educated yourself on the subject, you probably have zero inkling about the steps and the process that it takes to even like get on hormones, for example. Like, it's not just like you go into a doctor and they just like give you stuff. It's like, it's crazy to me that people are so misinformed about things that apparently they care so much about, or they think affects them so much. Just like talk to a trans person. I don't know. It's crazy to me. But like, I don't know that our country's at that point where people are willing to, I know it's very hard to not be like pessimistic and like feel very like disheartened, and I don't know. It's hard to speak on this with positivity. I had a friend post on Instagram like, oh, I want so badly to believe that people are good, and that really hit me, because I was like, yeah, dude, I want so badly to just like believe that the next 4 years are just gonna be like normal. I really just want them to be. But I think I don't have a lot of trust in Trump and his administration. And I think that's like that's like the main topic that I kind of want to get at is, I think a lot of liberals and people that voted for Kamala, like we want her, first of all. She has a long-standing successful career in politics and she's done a lot of good. So one, we want that. Two, she's well-spoken, respectful. And three, like, I think a lot of us just don't trust Trump. There's like there's a massive distrust of the type of person he is. I guess I could confidently say that's like a result of like his history in the media and lies and cheating and lawsuits and criminal convictions. Is like, a person can only do so many like questionable things before you go, like, I don't know if I trust that person to do any good. You know what I mean? And to me, it's kind of weird. So it's like, what? I would love to pose the question, like, what could he possibly do that would like make you not want to vote for him? That's what I don't understand. What would he have to do to lose your vote? Are your standards so low that like he can do all the stuff he's done and you still vote for him? That, oh, but it's not about what he's done, who he is, it's like his policies. But like, I don't know. It's just very confusing to me. What would he have to do to make his bad actions outweigh the possibility, not even the guarantee, the possibility of policies that would maybe benefit you? Because there's no guarantee of that. There's no guarantee of any president actually doing what they said they would do on the campaign trail. We all know that. We're not naive to that. So like, I don't know. Like, what would he have to do to make you say, nah? Are our standards that low that someone could be disrespectful and lie and cheat and da 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 da, and we still uphold them, and we still like uplift them and give them power and authority? I mean, are people in their everyday lives dealing with people like that and looking up to people like that to the extent that like they can't tell that it's bad? That's the real like psychological analysis that I would love to be done on the American people, because how is it that like growing up when I was young, you know, when you're little, you have this perception of wrong and right that you're taught. And, you know, I was taught you're nice, you know, you're friendly and you're nice and you're kind to everybody. You don't treat anyone differently for the way that they look, for the, you know, anything about them really. You treat people with respect, you know, and when people do bad things, like, you do something about it. You call them out. You don't just like watch it happen. You don't just like sit by in complacency, because silence is another form of support, you know? And then you get to a certain age, you learn all these things, you get to a certain age, and then you realize that people aren't taught the same thing, or their standards for what is good and what is bad. It's like on a spectrum, it's very different. Some people have a very basic understanding of like what is good. And then there are the beautiful humans on this planet that go above and beyond and exceed what is good and do amazing things. And I think every human has the capability and the capacity to exceed that, you know? I think it's all very clear to us. We know what it is like to exceed that. But I think a lot of people don't have a clear view of where that like bad line is. That side of the spectrum is very gray. People, depending on their background, their socioeconomic, you know, background, where they were raised, what kind of environment they had at home, you know, that determines where they draw that gray area on the bad side of the spectrum. And I wish that there was a way to like formally educate young people, or at least integrate into education like more of a clear line of like what is bad and what is not to be accepted, and what is, you know, what's disrespectful, and what is, you know, what is not acceptable, what we're not going to take. And that like someone can be in this side of the spectrum in the way that they speak, in the way that they act, da 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 da. And if they have good policies, that doesn't like, I don't know that necessarily brings them this way on the spectrum. Or I think maybe that's where the disconnect is, that some people think that it does. And I don't know. I don't know. That's where it gets tricky, because it definitely like depends. Depends on the situation. But with rhetoric that has the potential to harm people, with policies that have the potential to harm people, that's where like the line is drawn, you know? And I think a lot of my thoughts surrounding like the way I vote and why I vote the way I do are not really solely putting me at the forefront. I try to reflect on the way that I vote and vote with a vision of every type of American in my mind, you know? Before I fill in that circle, it's like, okay, well, how is this going to affect these people? How is this going to affect these people? How is it, you know? It's not just me, how it's going to affect me. It's like, oh, is there like a net positive from this? Or like, hopefully, is that the goal of this? Is there to be, for there to be a net positive in this situation? You know? Another thing that a lot of people will probably disagree with me on is the rent control law in the state of California, which I don't think passed. And I realize it's because there's a lot of people that own property in California that make money off of housing being like a stream of income for people. There are too many people that benefit from that to be concerned about, oh, well, what about the people that that don't have the privilege? What about the people that have a college degree, are working and living paycheck to paycheck, even with a college degree, you know, that have medical debt, that have student loan debt, that have any form of setback that prevent them from being in a financial place to purchase a home. Not even including just like the outrageous pricing for homes. The artificially inflated price of housing nowadays. It's not real. Yes, labor has gone up. Yes, goods and things have gone up. But like, you can't tell me that all of those things going into a house have gone up at the rate, to the extent that like the houses are actually worth what we pay for them. There's no way. So all that to say, like, the majority of Californians voted for profit over people and housing. And like, it's very clear that we have a housing issue in this state. The amount of unhoused people we have is like record breaking, dude. It's the worst. And we all want to do something about that. But I think there's a disconnect in seeing how rent control could help that. And that, no, you can't just like have a rental property and just like rake in money off of other people. Like, that's just like not cool. When like those people don't. Those people like can barely survive. I don't know, man. I don't know that I know this is probably my hot toddy take for the week. I don't really believe that like rent is like very ethical. Just like owning a property to rent out and not live in. I think there should be control on that, and there should be limits on how long you can do it for, how much you can profit, like what percentage you can profit off of it, and all that. Because housing is a human right to me. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have to pay for it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have to pay what it's worth for it, you know? But the markup on it is absurd. The markup is what is unethical. And if we can't improve that markup, then like, I don't know how people are gonna, you know? I don't know how people are gonna survive and be prosperous and be able to contribute into the economy. You know, it affects the economy. People living paycheck to paycheck. If people have more leeway with their living expenses, then they're more likely to spend more and put more money into the economy in other ways. You know, goods and services and things to do and travel and stuff, instead of just siphoning money into people and companies that own their properties, you know. I think that's one thing we can definitely all agree on, is like the whole companies owning property is like that's where we can fairly start in tackling this issue that I think people along all sides could agree upon. Maybe you disagree with me about like the rent control thing when it comes to like individual people owning and renting out their properties. That's okay. You can totally disagree with me on that. I get it. It's a very controversial opinion to have, but the company thing, nah, man, that is something that we need to tackle. I don't think anybody is cool with that. But yeah, I don't know. I just think our standards are kind of too low. For a country with so much money, we have very low standards for how we can improve and how good we can become. When it comes to social issues and the economy, like, be so for real. We can afford universal health care. We can afford health care for every American. Like, how are your standards so low that you don't want to fight for that? That's crazy. That you don't even try to talk about it or bring it into the discussion or advocate for it. Your standards are very low. Like, be so for real. You paid too much in taxes to not want that, to not want to get that back. It's crazy. And I know we can all agree on that. We paid too much taxes to not reap enough benefits out of it. And I think we need to have serious conversations across the aisle about things like that like actually affect Americans. Like, why are conservatives so concerned about trans people? Trans people are like such a small amount of the population. Leave them alone. Let them do what they want. Have protections in place by law to keep them safe, prevent them from losing jobs, Like, hello, that's basic. That's basic morals there. Let them do their thing. Protect them. Make sure that they are safe. But why do we have to be so, like, why is that a concern? On the other side, trying to mess with their shit. What do you care? When, like, we have a lot of things that we can be worried about. We have way more things we could be concerned about right now. Way more things that we could be working on together. I guess my, like, takeaway message from this is, like, we need to figure out as a country whether we care about the messenger or not. Because a lot of us are, like, disgusted by this messenger and embarrassed by this messenger. Other countries are embarrassed for us, you know? Maybe we should reevaluate our standards a little bit. We should have higher standards for who that messenger is and what they've done in the past and the type of person that they are. Because the type of person that they are does influence how they govern, whether you want to believe it or not. And if all you're concerned about is whether it affects you or not, then, like, it's not giving American, dude. I don't think that's the America that, like, most of us want. That selfish, unneighborly America. Come on. Like, be so for real. So I think we should raise our standards a little bit. I think we should talk more in this, way about issues that, like, actually will affect, like, all of us. Like, let's stop worrying about, like, single issues that are for, like, minute things. Let's look at the big picture, because we have enough money to deal with the big picture issues. And we need our standards to match that, We need to pressure our governments to look at the bigger picture a little bit more. Well, I'm going to wrap up today's episode, you guys. To be so for real, I really just needed to rant about this. I had a lot that was on my mind that I needed to get out. I don't care if you agree with me. I don't care if you disagree. I don't care. But if we don't have standards enough to, like, demand respect and love and peace within governing, then, like, yeah, we're, like, doomed. We're going to get what's coming for us if we don't have higher standards. So I just challenge you to raise your standards for government and for our elected officials and for what we expect of them. That's all I'm saying. I'm going to wrap up today's episode with another meditation so that we can reflect on all of that, and just reflect on what God is here, being so real with ourselves, and reflect on where we have the potential to go if we have the privilege to, if we have the safety and the ability to in the next few years. So have one more minute of meditation, just peace and love, tranquility. All right, everybody, that is going to wrap up today's episode. I am open to discourse surrounding any political topic. I'm going to put my Instagram in the bio. Please DM me. Like, I don't care if we've never met before. Let's chat. Let's have like realistic, productive, and mature conversations about this. Like, we gotta meet somewhere. We gotta figure this out. We gotta meet somewhere in the middle and focus on issues that like actually matter. So please hit me up if you'd like to discuss more. I will link also a crisis hotline in the description if you are feeling anxiety, as I kind of am, and you need to talk it out with someone. So yeah, I hope everyone has a nice rest of your week. Just pray and, manifest and meditate on peace and love. And I can't say for sure that we'll be okay, but I really hope that we are. Anyway, have a nice week and a wonderful weekend. Stay safe out there, y'all, and I'll see you next week. Bye.